Welcome to the Clubhouse in London. My name is Mark Jones. I work for a company called EnterpriseDB, and we're here today to talk about how we can help with our costs from an Oracle perspective. I was at Oracle for 14 years, and it is a very good product, and it's integrated into a lot of companies' software implementations. But I want to give you some ideas today, and Cura are also going to give you some demonstrations of how we think you can move forward and potentially move some of your databases, all of your databases, away eventually from the Oracle. Okay, so the agenda you might have already seen on your information that's been sent through. I'm going to start with me at a high level, just talking about EnterpriseDB and Postgres and the products that we produce. And then, as I said, Cura are going to do a technical workshop, or are going to do the technical workshops. And then finally, I'll do a wrap-up at the end with some actual customer case studies to show you what customers are moving away from Oracle well, moving to Postgres. Maybe they're still staying with Oracle as well. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. If you do have questions throughout the day, please feel free to ask. If it's hard, I'll pretend I don't know and we'll put it at the back. If I know the answer, we'll answer it as well. However, they will all still be captured, and we will send the information out at the end of the event. Okay, everybody comfortable? A couple of things just before we start. If you do hear a fire alarm, there may be one at 10 o'clock today. If it goes on for a few seconds, the closest fire exit to us is just outside the door, take a right. If you can't go down there, it's where you came in, and the meeting point is just on the corner building there. Okay. So, as I said, my name is Mark Jones. The objectives for my first presentation are an introduction to EDB, EnterpriseDB, the introduction to Postgres if you don't know it, and Postgres plus Advanced Server and the capabilities of what they do, and then a bit about replication and migration. Okay. So, introduction to EDB. EDB has evolved over time from a need of the industry looking at Postgres as a solution. Postgres is open source, and Postgres has many years of history in its evolution. It's a great, stable database product that is community-led. And now the community has led this product for a long time, and they've driven it well. They've made things work. The great thing about a community is when it doesn't work, they want to fix it. It's in their best interest because of the type of ethos they work with. They want to fix it. They don't get paid for fix it. They just want to make it work. That causes challenges, believe it or not, for some companies because there's a product out there that's being pushed forward by people they have no control over. And that's the way open source is. You know, this is a group of people that have got together and they want to produce a product that they think is needed and they push it in the way they want it to go. However, as an enterprise customer or as an enterprise company, it gives you a couple of things you need to address. If you have a community product, how can you make sure the product goes in the direction you want it to go into? How can you fix a product, or how can you ensure there's a fix there if you want it to be fixed? How do you get support for an open source product? So there are solutions out there. You can go to the community and say, this is a problem or this is a requirement. How can I get that requirement built into the product? And you'll find the splinter groups of the community that will do various solutions for you. As far as support, any community product is very well looked after. There's mailing lists that thousands of community members subscribe to. So again, if you want to actually get any help, you can go onto those community lists and get help. There are also also service companies out there that you can go to, and they'll provide a service that will also give you the fix you need. However, EDB, EnterpriseDB, they came along and said, okay, Postgres itself is a great product. It has some features that really resonate with customers, like no vendor lock-in. They have thousands of developers. They're low cost. But what it really lacks from a customer point of view when it comes to the enterprise is, I want some support. I want 24/7 support, follow the sun. I want to be able to call that person. I want to go to a website and register for support. And I want it fixed as soon as possible. So I want some SLAs, some service level agreements on that support as well. They want a product roadmap. So when we work with customers, we have a solution, and we work with customers who can say, well, we actually want the product potentially to go in this way. what do you think about that? Is there any movement in that? And what we can then do is work with the customers to say, well, we've come up with a solution and we'll put it into a roadmap so you can see when it's going to happen. We do the training. We do the Postgres training as well as the EnterpriseDB training. Now the difference is Postgres is community. EnterpriseDB is the Postgres community version rewrapped with some of our features. So our features will be enterprise class features that will allow you to have better performance tuning tools. It will allow you to have better enterprise management tools. So we've got something called Postgres Enterprise Manager. It allows you to control your product through the release cycle that we have as well. We work with Postgres very closely. We have 2 community members that are core community members actually working for EnterpriseDB. So if you know Dave Page, if you're in the Postgres community, or Bruce Moyjan, or Robert Haas, these are all real community members where we work with them very closely so that when Postgres is released, generally about a month afterwards, the next release of EnterpriseDB is released as well. And then finally, the indemnification. Enterprise companies need indemnification so that they've got something to go to if there's a problem. You know, we have our indemnification policies, or a policy that will keep you secure if things go wrong. Okay. So, all your Postgres needs. So first of all, we have PostgreSQL, the most advanced open source SQL database out there. We will support that as a product. So if you do want to just go with the native, the community version of Postgres, that's absolutely fine. We understand that a lot of companies are going down the route of just having open source. But then you want support. So we will do support for that. We have our Postgres Plus Advanced Server, soon to be renamed. Now, if I tell you in this room, you can't mention it to anybody else. I know it's recorded, it'll go on the web, but there you go. It's probably going to be called Postgres Plus Enterprise Edition. Okay, and one of the major features it has in there is the Oracle Compatibility layer. It's a fantastic layer. It means that you can move from from Oracle to EnterpriseDB with little or no sometimes effort. Now, I was an Oracle DBA, and the first thing you have to get over when you're moving from Oracle to Postgres is just a bit of language change. Where Oracle has redo, we have WAL, write-ahead logs. So a bit of thing there, the biggest confusion I found was Oracle has clusters. Now when we talk about clusters in Oracle, we're talking about real application clusters. In Postgres, they talk about a database cluster. And what that is that's effectively an instance of Oracle. So it's one installation, it's one shared pool, but many databases can be within that one shared pool. So that was one of the hard things to get over. That's a database cluster as opposed to an Oracle database cluster, which is a real application cluster. Okay, we have the enhanced security and performance built into our product, and this is fantastic. We have a product called SQL Protect. So if you've ever looked at SQL injection, you can buy a product from Oracle where they will protect your application and your database for SQL injection. It's part of the Postgres Enterprise Edition. That's okay. It's part of the Enterprise Edition. Fantastic product. We have fine-grained access. So again, as a DBA, you want your DBA to be able to manage the database, but you don't necessarily want them to see the data. So again, through the fine-grained access control, you can ensure you manage that effectively. And then finally, our third offering is the cloud database. We have a cloud database offering where you can go and look at it for free. You can use a free version, or you can actually go and pay a subscription version where we have the elasticity you would expect from a cloud. We have backup and recovery in there. Fantastic. Just go to the AWS, the Amazon cloud, and you have a look. I say for free, you can use a pretty small database to start with, and then just increase it as you want to. If you want the full feature backup and recovery, then there's a subscription to that. But it's out there already. We've been running it for about 2.5 years now, very successfully with some large customers. Okay, management. In the actual tool itself, we realized that you have to get something for your buck. So the Enterprise Edition itself comes with the additional features to Postgres. So for example, we have in Postgres something called PG Admin. So if you want to manage your database, you want to create tables, you want to look at the SQL, then you can use pgadmin. But if you want to manage an enterprise area where you want to store information about your databases in a repository, then we have PEM, Postgres Enterprise Manager. You can still manage your database, you can still create tables, but actually stored in the PEM server is all the information you need for tuning your SQL, looking at growth potential, how it's going forward, look at the stats from 3 weeks ago, and look at them, project in 3 weeks how much more space you'll need. So that's where PEM will come in on its own. Update Monitor. So it's a tool that will tell you of updates, just like Package Manager in Linux. It will tell you that there are new packages out there, and you can download them. Update Monitors, pretty similar. It will just tell you there's updates if you need them. SQL Protect, I mentioned that already. This is where you can stop SQL injection. And EDB Wrap. This is where you want to wrap your application code to database to protect it. If it's proprietary to you, you can wrap it so that, not I'm saying DBAs would do anything devious, but they can't steal your code. EDB Failover Manager and Multi-Master Replication. I will go into these in a bit more detail, but the Failover Manager, we have streaming replication in Postgres. So if you're Oracle, you'd call it standby databases or data guard, or now active data guard. We have this feature in EDB, but as EDB, so we have it in Postgres and EDB, but within EDB we have something called Failover Manager that will actually do the failover for you. So the fact that your primary's up and your slave is receiving all the changes, it's in read-only mode potentially, and then your primary falls down. At the moment you could script it to failover, but we released in December Failover Manager version 1, and it will do the failover for you. Okay? And at the moment that's a separate product, but if you wait till the 17th of March, it's going to be a bundled product where it all comes together. But I didn't tell you that either. Okay, we also have multi-master replication. So we have single master replication where you have one primary and one slave or multiple slaves. But we have multi-master replication where you want to actually have multiple copies of the same data. So what's written here gets written to the other master, and what's written here gets written to the other master. So it's not real application clusters, it's two separate databases. They just happen to be syncing with each other. Within the performance, again, built into PEM is the Index Advisor, SQL Profiler, and XDB, so the XDB replication, single master replication tool. So SQL Profiler, if you're Oracle, this is something that's standard. You know, you'd expect it to do your SQL tuning. You click on a button and it goes away and it tunes the SQL for you. But you have to pay for it. So if you're not aware of that, then when it's license time, you have to pay for that pressing on the button. Index Advisor, it will do just that. It will look at your system, it will look at stats and say, right, what indexes will help your database perform better? Now, EDB. When I first started EnterpriseDB last year, it was quite a strange feeling going into a customer and saying, hi, I'm Mark from EnterpriseDB. And they were like, who? Because I'd been 14 years of, hi, I'm Mark from Oracle, and everyone knew who Oracle was. However, when this came out, everyone started to know what who EnterpriseDB were. We are fifth in the Magic Quadrant for databases. Now, if you know this quadrant, everybody know this? This is what's used by the industry to say, right, is this a serious competitor for anybody? Is it a serious product? Well, EDB's product is now seen by Gartner as a very serious product. Postgres itself is a great database. It was missing a few things for the enterprise. Now it's got those additions. So, get the best of both worlds. Open source. If you need to be open source, you can be open source. If you need enterprise requirements, you've got your enterprise requirements there, the 7x24, the indemnification. Okay, we have a lot of customers out there. Now, if you take a look at this list here, they're not all using it in production. They're not all using it for their most available database. Some are, some aren't. But what's happening is people are looking at Enterprise DB and saying, right, we've got a big Oracle footprint. Do we need to be on Oracle? Why is this all on Oracle? Let's think about moving it off onto a lower cost resource. And when I say lower cost, I mean the lower cost resource. Yes, it's not an Oracle database. Oracle database has all the bells and the whistles you need. It has real application testing, real user insight, it has flashback. You name it, the Oracle database can do it. But as far as a database goes, Postgres EDB can do it. It has things like ACID compliancy that you need. It has multi-version concurrency control, which your database needs. It has recoverability, which your database needs. I have a list that will come out when CMS send the information out of what Oracle does and what EDB does. And there's not that much difference in what we can achieve. Yes, we don't have all those bells and whistles, but for core fundamental database activity, EDB can do it. So we have some great customers there. Panasonic, BAE Systems, eBay, IBM. We work with a lot of large companies to push this product forward. Okay, so we've covered this slide slightly already, but we realize that there's an open source community out there, and we work, we do work very, very closely. We provide the training for Postgres for free. So Bruce Moyton did an online 4-day training course the other week. Only 63 people turned up, but on an online training, that was quite a lot of people. But what we also need is the enterprise solution. So that's where we come in. So the advanced server piece, 4 areas: security, tools, performance, and compatibility. We will get to the Oracle compatibility towards the end. But security, I've mentioned them already. Fine-grained audit logging, row-level security, SQL Protect, EDB wrap, server-side code protection, that is the EDB wrap. And then we also have some government certifications in there. Now, we are only EAL2. Anybody using a higher certification than EAL2? We will go as high as any company will pay us to go to. It's a very expensive thing to do. So if you need a higher certification, EDB will work with you to see if we can get a higher certification for your company. Again, bundled tools that are coming. We are re-releasing the products in March, as I said, 17th of March, don't tell anybody. And it's going to be a couple of products. The first product is going to be called Standard Edition, which is Postgres native. And Enterprise Edition is going to be the Postgres Plus Advanced Server that I'm talking about. It will come with everything that you need. It will come with Postgres Enterprise Manager, it will come with Replication, it will come with SQL Profiler. So everything I'm talking about today will be bundled up into one package. Okay. So Oracle SQL Server and Postgres to Postgres Plus Replication. If you have Oracle or SQL Server or Postgres, you can replicate to EDB's version. Okay. Why that's useful, especially if you're on a paid service, is you can replicate your most important to EDB and use it as read-only. So at the moment, if you've got Active Data Guard, you're paying an Oracle license for that Active Data Guard. And you could just migrate that. And we're talking about creating temporary tables in the production and linking them across or inserting them into an EDB database, as simple as that. But then it's read-only for you to do your queries. Why store that in an Oracle?
Can you do it the other way?
Yes, you can do it the other way. But why store it in Oracle if you don't need to for your read-only? Even though you've got Data Guard as well, Oracle's Data Guard is free, but you need a database license to store it. The Active Data Guard isn't free, and you still need a database license to store it. Postgres Plus Enterprise Edition could be a solution where you can move your read-only applications to that source. I've talked about enterprise management. This is where we have the repository database, where we want to know the most performant SQL, and if it's not performant, why is it not performant, and how do we make it performant? Update Monitor, I've mentioned that, and I've also mentioned the migration tools as well as replication. So we've got replication, we've got migration, 2 different things. The replication is just getting data from A to B, temporarily, potentially, but to migrate as well, we have migration tools built in there, again, that you can migrate away from A to B, whether that be Oracle, Microsoft, or Postgres native. Any questions so far? Okay. So this is high level. We get the detail from Kuru.
Sorry, can you replicate from other databases apart from SQL Server?
We can replicate from them, but we're not certified against it yet. So you can try it. It's just SQL. If you can get a link from A to B, you can replicate the data. It depends on the type of replication you're doing. If it's log shipping, then no. But if it's just the creating a table and a JDBC link, then yes. It's just SQL. So.
And your understanding of replication is the same for mine. You've got your live database, users are accessing it, making changes.
Yep.
That streams across to a standby. Changes are written there.
Correct. So back to your question. So yours, if you're not using log shipping, so it's not a true replication. But what we do is what you were saying there with the redo in Oracle. You would do log shipping, where it would take the redo and apply it. We also do synchronous replication, where it goes straight to the instance and applies it, so you can have a two-phase commit because you want synchronous replication. So A is guaranteed and B is guaranteed. That's there as well.
Between another and Postgres.
Yes. Oh, no. For Postgres to Postgres streaming replication, sorry. For taking data from Oracle to Postgres, it is just creating a temporary table in Oracle and then farming it across. So that's not what we would call, what's Oracle's product?
Advanced replication.
No, the other product they bought.
Golden
Gate. It's not Golden Gate, because with Golden Gate you could get from any database to Oracle or vice versa. The replication within Oracle, so standby database or data guard, yes, we do the data guard, but not from Oracle to Postgres. That is Golden Gate effectively. Okay? But as far as real replication goes, so I have a Postgres EnterpriseDB database and want to replicate to another EnterpriseDB database, yes, that is true replication through log shipping or through synchronous two-phase commit. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm just interested in the idea of having the Postgres database as a backup to
Yeah, well that is literally create a separate table. It does it automatically for you, part of the tool, and then it just pushes the data into the Postgres database. But it's not it's not log shipping. You would, yes, you'd have to, for that table, you'd have to double up your storage.
Is that almost a solution for like data warehouses?
Could be if you wanted to do that. Yeah, if you wanted to get that data shipped over there because you're not going to use it for anything through the day apart from reading, then that's fine. And you could even create materialized views over there, so you don't have to have the overhead of creating the script as well. Sorry, generating the SQL every time. Okay.
Specific versions that you support from Oracle Server. You've got 12CF now. Do you go back to
8. I know we're on 8.4. I don't know the exact version, but 8.4 rings a bell. So can we just make a note of that on the how backward compatible we are? I'm not seeing a limit backwards. I think we've kept up with Oracle, because if you're on 8.4 Oracle, then you're not supported anymore probably. So. Okay, so some performance. This line here, faster partitioning. What we're talking about there is faster partitioning to Postgres. So these are the enterprise features that we've added on with EDB. So it's faster than the Postgres. As far as the partitioning, we have, people read at the, morning by the way, we have our literature online and people see there's a limitation. The maximum size of a table in Postgres is 32 terabytes. So people look at that and think, oh, okay, we can't use that, it's too small. How many DBAs have we got out there? Okay. What's the largest table you have? When I was back in 2003, I looked after the world's third largest OLTB database, and it's only 300 gig. It's amazing. Anyway, what we mean by that is, yes, the maximum table size is 32 terabytes, but you'd never have a table at 32. You'd partition it. So you could effectively have your primary partition and then many, many, many other partitions, and those will all be tables. So of course they can be a maximum of 32 terabytes. So one table at the top with 32 terabytes worth of partition information to tell it about where the partitions are and so on. So it's almost unlimited. So once you get over that size that says it is actually 32 terabytes for a table, It's not, because you would never have one table at 32 terabytes, I hope. SQL Profiler we know about. It helps us to analyze our SQL and maybe make some suggestions. Bulk Loader, how to get data in and out of Postgres. You okay? Yeah. Did you sell it?
Oh, I've got performance issues.
Oh, okay. They need SQL Profiler. Okay. Index Advisor, we have hints if you're using, well, when you're doing your explain plans. Bulk collect, fetch, binding of arrays, and also dynamic runtime statistics will reveal your bottlenecks. What this is it's online, it's looking at your active sessions, and it's going to tell you where you're having problems. And then you can look at that SQL to potentially suggest solutions. And then finally, what we're all here for, I've got to make a move on, the compatibility layer. So, when I first moved from Oracle to EDB, I installed Postgres, and I wanted to bring tables across from Oracle to EDB, and it wouldn't come across because I was using native. So create me a table, create me a is it number or numeric in Oracle? Numeric? Number? Sure. Whichever one it is, I forgot, it's been such a long time. Then when I tried to create a table in Postgres, it was like, unknown data type. What are you talking about? But all they've done in EDB is they've emulated the fact that whatever you could use in Oracle, they've just translated it to what you use in Postgres. So if it was number, it's now numeric. If it was numeric, it's now number. So whichever one it was. Oracle uses non-standard SQL sometimes, especially in its joins. We use standard SQL. You can still use the Oracle way if you like. It just does the translation for you. It's a great way of doing it. Now, as again, when you look at the Oracle compatibility layer, things like database links, we know what database links are. Materialized views, we know what materialized views are, if you're Oracle. It just makes, if you're an Oracle person, it makes your transition so much easier. If you look at Oracle functionality, things that you can do in Oracle that you can't do in Postgres Postgres Enterprise Edition, you can't do things with your storage, ASM. We don't have ASM. You have to do that yourself. It's at the disk layer. We don't have table spaces like they have table spaces. All we have table spaces for are symbolic links to other directories. So there's a couple of things there that you just need to get around. Once you get around them, you'll find that they are very compatible. So if you've got developers out there already or people out there using Oracle, is the migration easy to go to Postgres? Well, as somebody who was a DBA in Oracle and moved to Postgres, I can say once you get over the different language they use, then yes, SQL is SQL. Select star from Joule still works. You know? Show me the shared pool still works. It's great. So you don't have to retrain your staff. We're talking about cost containment today. You don't have to retrain your staff. Yes, you have to send them on the web to find the course that I haven't written yet, but I'm going to write, on how to get from Oracle to Postgres, what a DBA needs to know. And I will be doing that within the next few months. Okay. So we have support for PL SQL and Oracle Call Interface. Replication for ease of sharing data. All things you'd expect. If you have Oracle now and you have it on all of your databases, you're going to be paying unnecessarily for some of those databases. Have a look at them and say, right, which ones can we move off? If I said to you, put your most performant Oracle database onto this, you're going to say no straight away. You've got to learn the product. You've got to understand. You've got to trust it. So have a look at what databases you're paying for unnecessarily. Are they in-house? Are they 24/7? If they're not, then start looking at EDB. If they are, I'm not saying you can't look at EDB, but I think you would probably want to get a bit more proof of concept before you moved forward. Some of the Oracle compatibility. If you're, again, an Oracle person, you'll recognize these. Row ID, UTL file management, all. So here, Oracle-like data dictionary views, all DBA user. Yeah. DBMS MView, crypto, scheduler, all packages that are in Oracle. Now all we've done is we've translated them, and we don't support every single package, but what we are doing is increasing the amount that we do. One of the one of the things we do is an Oracle migration assessment where we look at your schema in Oracle and we look at the schema if it was put into Postgres or EDB. And we say, right, this is what we think you would need to do to get from Oracle to EDB. Now, it may be that we say, we don't think you should do it. There's too much change. Or it may be we say, well, yes, we've got support for all these packages, but the ones we haven't got support for, in the past, this is how we've got around it. So work with us if you're looking at an Oracle migration to to EDB. We have got a lot of years of experience now of getting people from Oracle to EnterpriseDB. $6,900 per socket. Now for that, have we got it here? No, we haven't. For that, you get your database, your partitioning, you get Data Guard, you get Postgres Plus Enterprise Manager, you get SQL Profiler, you get XDB Replication. So you get everything that you need for a standard database tool that can get you away from Oracle. At the moment, that price will get you most of it. It just wouldn't get you the multi-master replication. It wouldn't get you PEM. So you'd have to buy additional. In March, 17th of March, it all's going to be packaged as one. And that's per socket, not per core. So here we have a comparison on IBM. 4 sockets at 32 core. Oracle love to charge by the core. So this is $47,000 per core. Okay, so I'll have £2 million. Of course, I've got to put a bit of discount on there, but that's £2 million. We don't charge for license fee. We have a subscription model every year. 22% for the license fee, 4,900 at the moment there, so 6,900 going forward per socket. So if you have a 4-core socket, sorry, a 4-socket machine with 32 cores, you're still just paying for 4 sockets. Now you see why I say look at your databases, and if they're Oracle, do they really need to be Oracle? If you can move them to this, why wouldn't you? And those are real figures. Yes, you have to add into that potentially that you need to retrain your DBAs. But as we said, it's actually not that hard. If they're Oracle DBAs, they know SQL. It's not hard to get from A to B. So, deployment strategies. This is where we're looking at now, right? What are we doing? If you're developing new applications, you should really be looking at Postgres Plus because it's going to be an easy fit. We've got an application, let's make it work on EnterpriseDB. If you're having it as a replication server, as we discussed earlier, this is just replication from Oracle to Postgres Plus Advanced Server or Enterprise Edition, where you create a temporary table, double your space, and then copy it across. But is that doubling of your space going to cost you less than an Oracle license? That's what you have to ask yourself. And we're not talking about the whole database, just the tables that you need for read-only access. Migrate your non-mission critical, even your mission critical as well, away from Oracle to Postgres. We're going to look at significant, and I mean significant, cost savings. If you go back to here, look at the cost savings, they speak for themselves. Again, of course, there's got to be a discount there, which is fully understood by Oracle. But still, it's going to be a significant cost saving. But these are some of the places you should be looking and working with your DBA teams to look at how we can get from Oracle onto a lower cost resource. Okay. I have 2 minutes left. Am I okay to carry on? I forgot about this section. Replication and migration. I added this last night. So, replication, single master replication. This is where this is the active data guard or data guard that you have in Oracle. We want to get the data from Postgres Plus Enterprise Edition to Postgres Plus Enterprise Edition for read-only, potentially. And that is through log shipping or through a 2-phase commit. If you don't want to use a 2-phase commit, that's synchronous. You can do asynchronous, that's fine. We have sharding, where you can have many, many versions of the standby database or the slave database. That's the log shipping that we mentioned earlier. If you want to migrate from SQL Server or Oracle, then yes, we're talking about recreating tables in the existing database and just streaming them across through a connection, maybe a JVPC connection, to the EnterpriseDB database through triggers.
Those triggers, if you change the source schema, do those triggers have to be
Yes. Well, when you say source, what are you changing in the source?
I'm just saying if the source schema changes.
Yeah, oh, the schema. Sorry. Yeah, if the schema changes, then you'd have to think about how that impacts the DDL the slave, effectively. Yeah. Okay, but it's a good way of getting data into a lower cost resource if needed. Again, if I was talking Oracle here, we have a great story for active standby. You know, reutilize your resources. It's standing there doing nothing, and you can have read-only on there, but you have to pay for it. So let's go this way, where you can have that same hardware resource, but with a lower cost software version on there. And then finally, the multi-master replication. This is where we want to have multiple databases sharing the same data, but they are still individual databases. And this was a cost option in the old pricing. This comes with the latest version of Enterprise Edition. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Final slide here is you don't have to go to Oracle only, and you don't have to go to EnterpriseDB only. You can have the best of both worlds, where you can utilize Oracle. You've got Oracle there. It's integrated into your environment. But why not think about how we can shift some of those other databases that aren't warranted to be on such a high cost resource? How can we get them off onto an EnterpriseDB solution? Very briefly, just go through the functionality differences. So in Oracle, what they do and what we do. This is to do with the functionality. So multi-process based, well, we're the same. The only thing different I suppose is they use threads. We don't. We use single processes. Every user gets a process as opposed to a thread. And that's why when I said earlier, if you kill -9, then what can happen is they still have a process. And so you just to be aware of that. Your integrity is still going to be there. Your database will still have the processes running in the background, even though you won't be able to see them, that service that process. So the shared buffer, the block manager, the WAL writer, all will still be there, servicing what's left of those processes alive. So don't do a kill -9 if you can help it. Okay, so we're a relational model. We have client server. We have high availability through streaming replication. We don't have real application clusters. There is a community project called XC, and it's at version 1, and we don't support it yet, but they're looking at clustering in the rack sense. 64-bit locking mode, we do rollover locking. Recovery, in Oracle it's called redo, in Postgres it's called WAL, write-ahead locks. Deadlock detection, well, we have that. We have fully MVCC, multi-version concurrency control. Compliant. APIs, the JDBC, ODBC, you can see they're all supported. So far, functionality-wise, I can't see a reason not to use EDB. Okay, parallel select and parallel index and parallel statistics. A couple of those will be in version 9.4. Who uses parallel select and parallel indexes? Heavily?
Depends on the client.
Yeah. So, there you go. Everybody else now can have EDB because you've got the functionality you need. It's just a way of doing multi-processing parallel sorts, that's all. Okay, SQL, subqueries, all done. Equijoins, outer joins, all supported. Still functionality. Okay, we don't do advanced message queuing yet. Anybody using advanced message queuing? That's okay then, good. Everything else is supported there, as you can see. We do union all, we do updatable views, we do clubs, create table as select, great function. Okay, here, triggers, they're supported before, after trigger statements, row trigger, instead of trigger, system event triggers, we support them. Simple. Okay, DB links, yeah, we support DB links. I mentioned that a couple of times already. Okay, object-wise, primary keys, foreign keys, everything so far is supported. Unique, non-unique. Partition types, we don't support hash partitioning yet. And if you have hash partitions, then you have it for a reason. And if you need hash partitions, then there's not much we can do about it at the moment. But we have alternatives that customers use. You know, the most common one would be range and list, and we support those. Operation, we can't merge partitions, We can't rename partitions and we can't modify partitions. Not the end of the world, but again, that's what we can't support. And we don't do global indexes yet. So not a long list yet, but here, nchar, we don't support nchar, but what we do is we convert it to char. Simple as that. So if you want an nchar column, we just put it as a char column. And also nclobs. Supported clob is the same as nclob. Simple. We do support it, but not the same wording that, that Postgres, Oracle uses. B file, we don't support binary files. Anybody using binary files? Okay. Up to terabytes, so the binary large objects which you were talking about earlier, we support those. Up to 4 terabytes. Functions, average, count, min, max, all the simple stuff. You know, round, sign, sort, all still there. Okay, we don't do lower, upper, or NLS lower, NLS upper, and we don't do soundex. But that's not going to stop you using the product because of those few products that we don't, or those few data types we don't support. How many data types are there? A lot out there, and you can normally find an alternative. It's down to the application design really. Okay, we don't have character row ID, we don't do convert, multi-byte, single byte. Operation-wise, we can't create and add and rename, resize and drop data files. We do it a different way. We just don't have ASM. It's down to the OS people to give us space and we'll just use that disk space. All they have to tell us is a directory and we can actually create all the files we need in those directories. Now those directories could be referenced as a table space, and remember I said earlier, table spaces are just symbolic links to that area. And then what our EDB does, or Postgres does, is it creates small files of a certain size, again, that you can stipulate, where it realizes the fact that you don't want massive files, it just uses many small files. And that can be a benefit sometimes, and sometimes that can have an issue for you as well. But those are things you learn when you start to work with Postgres, what file size you need. Recycle bin, we don't have it, we don't have flashback. Table space read-only, data file online, offline, online reorg. We don't have any of that because we don't do it that way. That's the only reason they're saying they're not supported. We don't do it on that way. Online index rebuild, okay, that's not supported. So you need to rebuild your index online. That can be a pain because you can't afford an outage just to rebuild an index. So that can have an impact sometimes. But we can do offlining tables without shutting the database down, if you like. So we can say, right, we want to freeze this table and rebuild the index. You can't write to it, so there are ways of getting around it slightly. Not as good as Oracle there at the moment, though, but that will change. And then finally, we don't do transparent data encryption, but we also can encrypt packages, but that's through a third party that we support. Now, remember earlier I said one of the things about the community is there's branches off it. You don't need EDB to do this. You don't need EDB. You can just go Postgres and go and find the community branch that's doing all of your products for you. But what's great about EDB is they support their products, they have the indemnification, and they have put the features together they think are most needed by the enterprise. And you have a roadmap, and you have support, and you have training. But we have got one there that I say we have supported. We've gone to the community and we support that. Okay, very quickly now, RMAN. We don't do RMAN. Now there's a big question out there. We don't do incremental backups. But surely that's just a wording. We don't do incremental backups. What we do is we do a base backup and then we have the archive logs. So there's an incremental backup. You do a backup on a Sunday, you keep all your archives to the following Sunday. If you have a problem, you restore your backup and you apply with your archives. That's incremental backup. Yeah. But there is a tool out there called Barman. Sorry, what was the question?
So is there any way of backing up the archives?
Is there any
way of backing up just the archives?
Okay, I don't understand the question.
If I just want to take the archive log backup,
Yeah.
Is there any way in EDB to take?
Yeah, just a file level backup. That's what it is. Just a file copy. That's what it is. But you tend to store that off the normal disk, off the data disk, and you can just mirror snap it or whatever you want to do. But they're just archive files at the OS level.
What's the compression like on the backup?
Good. Is that right? We can compress the archives, yes, but the ratio, I don't know. You'd have to test it. If I said 3%, 10%, 20%, you'd still have to check it yourself. Right. But good is what I'm going with. So, incremental backups. I've just said we don't support it. We don't support the word incremental backup. We just do it a different way. Okay? Table level recovery, we don't do that. We can't recover just one table from a database, which you can with Oracle. So that can cause a challenge sometimes if you've got those DBAs that like to drop tables on production. I don't know any of those anymore because they don't exist. When was the last time you dropped a table on a production database? So, the thing that Oracle has is the flashback. If you're in a test or a development environment, it's great to be able to flash back to prior to making any changes. With Postgres, all you can do is go back to the base backup and then do a point in time to recovery to just where you wanted to stop. So, looking at that long list, that was it. Those are the database differences from Oracle's core database product to EnterpriseDB's core database product. And there wasn't that much that could dissuade you from going to the EDB, I don't think. It does what it says on the tin. It's a core database product. That will come out with the literature that's sent out from CMS. Any questions on that?